Let's talk about something that's rarely discussed, but deeply felt. For many people, especially as we age, there's this quiet, nagging feeling inside. It shows up in intimate moments, in the privacy of our thoughts. It's the feeling that something has changed or is missing. You might be asking yourself questions like, why don't I feel the same way I used to? Why is desire different now? Is this just part of getting older? Or is something wrong with me? And the truth is, you're not alone. Not even close. But here's the part that really matters. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. What you're experiencing, it's actually a doorway. A calling back to something deeper, something more authentic. This video is for anyone who's ever felt disconnected from their own body. Anyone who's wondered where their spark went. Anyone who's ever felt ashamed, frustrated, or even invisible in their own skin. And if you're here right now, whether you're 45, 60, or 75, I want to say this. You are not past your prime. You haven't missed the boat. In fact, this might be the beginning of something more powerful than you've ever known before. Let's dive in. As we age, our bodies change. That's no secret. But when it comes to sexual health, especially for women, the conversation gets quiet, too quiet. Doctors might not bring it up. Friends might avoid it. And online, well, you've probably seen more ads for quick fixes than real talk. But here's what's really going on. Aging brings hormonal shifts. For women, estrogen levels drop, especially after menopause. That change can affect natural lubrication, blood flow, sensitivity, and even how your body responds to touch. It's like the volume on your sensory system has been turned down a few notches. For men, testosterone gradually decreases. Erections might take longer, or they're not as firm. Maybe desire isn't what it used to be. And all of this can lead to a very specific kind of pain, the emotional kind. We start to feel less alive, less desirable, less like ourselves. And when that happens, shame can creep in. You might think, is it just me? Am I too old to feel sexy? Why does everyone else seem fine, and I'm the only one struggling? Again, you are not alone. So let's bust a big myth right now. Sexual vitality isn't something you either have or you don't. It's not just for the young. It's not reserved for perfect bodies or glossy magazines. Sexual vitality is an energy, a connection, a relationship with your body, your heart, and your presence. And that connection, it can grow with age. It can deepen. It can become more powerful, more sacred, and more nourishing than it ever was before. But first, we have to clear out the noise. Let's take a moment to talk about shame. Because this emotion, more than any physical change, is often the biggest barrier to pleasure. Shame says, don't talk about this. Shame says, you should have figured this out by now. Shame says, it's your fault. But shame is a liar. It's a voice we picked up somewhere, maybe from our culture, or our upbringing, or past partners who didn't know how to meet us where we were. And shame doesn't go away just by ignoring it. It goes away by shining light on it. So I want you to hear this loud and clear. It is not your fault if your body has changed. It is not your fault if desire feels different. It is not your fault if pleasure takes more time, more intention, or a completely new approach. Your body is wise. Your body is adapting. And your body deserves your attention, your compassion, and your love, not your judgment. Now, let's talk about connection. One of the most surprising things people discover as they move through this journey is that the body responds beautifully when it feels safe, seen, and loved. This isn't about faking confidence. It's about actually creating safety in your own skin. And to do that, you've got to come back to the body, not just with your mind, but with your breath, your hands, your senses. Because sexual energy doesn't start in the genitals. It starts in the nervous system. It starts with how you breathe, how you move, and how you feel. That's why self-intimacy is such a powerful niche. It's not just about learning techniques. It's about relearning your body's language. So ask yourself, when was the last time you touched your body with curiosity, not criticism. When was the last time you let yourself receive, without rushing, without an agenda, without trying to perform? These are the moments that reawaken your sensuality, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. Now let's shift gears and talk about the science. Your brain and your body are in constant dialogue, and when it comes to pleasure, the brain plays a huge role. Think about this. If your brain is stressed, distracted, or self-conscious, if you're constantly in fight or flight mode from everyday life, your body's ability to feel pleasure drops significantly. This isn't just emotional, it's biological. Your nervous system literally diverts blood flow away from the pelvis when it's in stress mode. Why? Because it thinks there's danger, and survival trumps arousal. So if you're not feeling desire, if your body isn't responding, there's a good chance your nervous system is just trying to protect you. But the beautiful thing is, your body wants to feel. Your nervous system wants to shift into relaxation and receptivity. And with the right approach, you can train it to do exactly that. This is where breath work, slow touch, and mindfulness come in. These aren't just trendy practices. They're actually tools to regulate your nervous system and to reopen the pathways of pleasure. Let's pause here. Take a deep breath. Really do it with me. Inhale and exhale slowly. This is how it starts. Coming back home to yourself. Not by pushing or fixing, but by listening, by softening, by saying, I'm here. I'm listening. I matter. Because you do matter. Your pleasure matters. Your aliveness matters. And this journey, it's yours to take. At your own pace, in your own time, and in your own way. So now that we've set the foundation, understanding the changes in the body, the role of the nervous system, and the impact of shame, let's start looking at how to rebuild connection with yourself. And it starts with something incredibly simple: presence. Now, I know that might sound vague or even cliche, but hear me out. Presence isn't just a mindset, it's an embodied state. It's the moment you stop rushing, stop performing, stop checking out, and start feeling. Feeling your breath move in and out. Feeling the temperature of your skin. Feeling your emotions, even if they're messy. Because when you bring presence to your body, especially in intimate moments, something shifts. You go from doing to being, from striving to sensing, from am I doing this right, to what feels good right now. And this is where real intimacy begins, not just with a partner, but with yourself. Now let's talk about touch. Touch is one of the most powerful tools for reconnecting with the body. But for many people, especially as they get older, touch becomes more functional than pleasurable. You might apply lotion to your body every day and still not feel anything emotionally from that. Or you might go through the motions during intimacy, but it feels like a routine, more like a checklist than a moment of connection. So what if touch became sacred again? Not in a woo-woo way, but in a deeply human, deeply sensual way. Here's a practice to try. Something you can do in just 5 minutes. Find a quiet place. Take a few deep breaths. Then, place your hands on your body, anywhere that feels safe. Maybe your heart, your belly, your thighs. And instead of rushing, just be still. Feel the warmth of your hands, the texture of your skin, the rhythm of your breath beneath your touch. No goal, no pressure, just presence. You might be surprised what begins to wake up, not just physically, but emotionally. Because for many of us, our bodies are starving for loving, intentional, non-goal-oriented touch. Now, let's bring in another piece of this puzzle: curiosity. Curiosity is the antidote to shame. It's what allows us to explore instead of judge, to ask what's here, instead of what's wrong with me. And when you bring curiosity into your relationship with your body, your aging process, and your sexuality, things soften. You can start to notice what kinds of touch feel nurturing, what kind of movement feels alive, what brings a sense of warmth, or ease, or electricity. This is the beauty of the self-intimacy niche. It's not about fixing anything. It's about discovering what already lives inside of you, what's waiting to be felt. And the more you explore from a place of curiosity, the more your body begins to trust you again. Not because you're forcing it, but because you're listening. Let's also talk about grief, because this is real. For many people, part of reconnecting to their sexual energy means grieving what used to be. Maybe you miss how quickly your body used to respond. Maybe you long for the spark that once came so easily. Maybe you've experienced loss of a partner, of mobility, of confidence. Grief is part of the process, and ignoring it doesn't make it go away. It just buries it deeper. So allow yourself to feel it, to say, I miss that version of me. I wish things hadn't changed. I'm scared of not feeling that way again. All of that is okay. All of that is valid. But here's the shift. Your sensuality doesn't end with those losses. It evolves through them. And often, on the other side of grief, is something more grounded, more tender, more real. So don't rush past the hard parts. They're part of the alchemy. They're part of what makes this next chapter so rich. Now let's bring in the role of imagination. Yes, imagination. Because just like athletes use visualization to enhance their performance, you can use imagination to reawaken your sensory and emotional experience of intimacy. Here's how. Close your eyes and imagine a moment where you felt completely relaxed, completely safe, completely open. It doesn't have to be sexual. It could be lying in the sun, floating in water, being held in a hug that felt real and grounding. Let yourself really feel that memory. Let it come alive in your body. You may notice your breath deepen, your muscles soften, your nervous system settle. That's not pretend. That's neurobiology. That's your body responding to the felt sense of safety and connection. And that same practice can be applied to intimacy. Imagine being touched the way you long to be touched. Imagine being looked at with love and presence. Imagine your own hands, your own breath, awakening that energy inside you. This is not about fantasy. It's about activating the body's potential to feel again. So where does this all lead? To a new kind of sensuality. One that isn't defined by performance, youth, or urgency, but by presence, permission, and deep self-connection. Because the truth is, pleasure isn't just physical. It's emotional, energetic, relational. And as you rebuild your relationship with your own body, you may find yourself softening into moments of joy, warmth, aliveness, even if they're small at first. That moment when your breath deepens and you feel your body again. That moment when shame loosens its grip and you feel curiosity instead. That moment when you're not trying to be anyone else, but just being fully, completely you. Those are sacred moments, and they build, they ripple, they become the foundation of a new way of living and loving. Before we move into practical steps, I want you to hear one more thing. Your body is not behind. You are not too late, and everything you need to reconnect with your sensual vitality is already inside of you. It just needs space. It needs compassion. It needs your attention, not your judgment. This journey doesn't require you to be someone you're not. It invites you to become more of who you already are. And that's powerful. Now that we've grounded ourselves in presence, curiosity, and imagination, let's talk about how to actually practice self-intimacy in everyday life. Because here's the truth. Awareness is beautiful, but embodiment is where the transformation happens. And this doesn't require hours of your time or some big ritual. In fact, the most powerful shifts often come from the smallest, most consistent acts of attention. Let's start with this idea. What would it be like to treat your body like someone you love? Not tolerate, not fix, but love. Think about it. When you love someone, you check in with them. You ask them how they're doing. You notice when they're tired or tense or quiet. And you offer care, not criticism. So what would it look like to do that with your own body? Waking up in the morning and just placing your hand on your chest for a few seconds. Saying to yourself, hey, I'm here. I've got you. Letting your breath drop into your belly before you even step out of bed. That's where intimacy begins, in those gentle moments of connection. Next, I want to offer a simple but powerful practice called the 5-minute sensory check-in. Here's how it works. Once a day, just 5 minutes, pause and tune in to your 5 senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? And most importantly, what do you feel against your skin? You might notice sunlight hitting your arm, or the texture of the clothes on your body, or the softness of the chair you're sitting on. And as you notice these things, let yourself enjoy them. Not just observe them, but savor them. Because pleasure isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's a whisper, a softness, a breath. The more you practice this, the more your nervous system starts to recognize these moments of aliveness and begins to crave them. In a good way. You're rewiring yourself for presence, for sensuality, for connection. Now let's address something that comes up for almost everyone at some point in this journey. Resistance. That voice that says, "This is silly. This isn't doing anything. I'm too old for this." What's the point? That resistance? Totally normal. And also, not the end of the story. Because resistance often shows up right before something starts to change. It's like the nervous system saying, "Wait a minute. We don't usually slow down and feel things. This feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar can feel unsafe." But you know what helps? Meeting that resistance with curiosity, not control. Try saying to yourself, "Ah, there you are, old thought. I see you, fear. You're trying to protect me. I hear you, doubt, but I'm still choosing presence." You don't have to argue with resistance. Just don't hand it the keys. Let's shift now into something a little more tangible, something people often ask about. How do I awaken sexual energy again? Especially if it feels like it's gone dormant? Here's the good news. It's not gone. It may be sleeping, buried under years of stress, numbness, or shame, but it's not broken. And the path to awakening it isn't about forcing arousal. It's about inviting energy to move again. Start by bringing attention to your pelvis, your hips, your low belly. These areas hold so much of our creative and sensual energy, but we often disconnect from them. So try this. Sit or stand in a quiet space. Close your eyes. Bring your breath all the way down into your lower belly. Feel your sit bones grounding you. Gently move your hips, small circles, figure eights, sways, just enough to create sensation. And as you do this, breathe. Feel the movement inside. No goal, just awareness. You might notice warmth, tingling, emotion, or nothing at all. It's all okay. This kind of movement wakes up not just the muscles, but the energy stored in the body. It's like knocking gently on a door that's been closed for a while and saying, "Hey, I'm here. I'm listening. You're safe to come out now." Another powerful piece of this journey is reclaiming self-touch as a nourishing, sacred act, not something secretive or shameful. And that starts by changing the context. Set the scene. Light a candle. Play soft music. Create a space that feels like it matters, because it does. And then, instead of rushing toward climax or outcome, ask yourself, what does my body want to feel right now? What would feel good? Not just what would be efficient. How can I explore my own body with the same care I would offer to someone I love? Let your touch be slow. Let your breath guide you. Let sensation unfold naturally. Because when you take the pressure off and focus on exploration instead of performance, new pathways of pleasure often emerge. This isn't just about self-pleasure in the narrow sense. It's about self-intimacy. About being fully present with yourself. About saying, with your actions, "I'm worth this time. I'm worth this care." Now, here's a mindset shift that changes everything. What if your sexual energy is not just about sex, but about life force? Think about it. That energy that fuels sensuality also fuels creativity. The energy that awakens desire also awakens purpose. The spark you feel in your body, that's vitality. That's aliveness. And when you begin tending to that spark, not for anyone else, but for you, everything starts to shift. You may notice yourself speaking with more confidence, walking with more ease, showing up in relationships with more depth and clarity. Why? Because you're no longer cut off from your power source. You're plugged back in. One last piece for this section. Consistency beats intensity. This journey isn't about doing one big practice and suddenly feeling healed or awakened or whole. It's about coming back to yourself, gently, regularly, with love. Even 1 minute a day of presence, even one breath of curiosity, even one moment of tenderness toward your own skin. It all counts. It all builds. And the more you show up in small, meaningful ways, the more your body learns to trust that you are here, that you're listening, that it's safe to soften, to feel, to open. Because that's what this is really about. Reopening the door to your own inner world. And remembering, it was never locked. It was waiting. So let's bring this all together. We've talked about presence, about being curious instead of critical, about moving from thinking to sensing, and about the power of self-touch, movement, breath, and attention. But here's where the transformation really deepens. When we realize that self-intimacy is not a destination, it's a way of relating. It's not something you arrive at once and for all. It's a relationship you cultivate with yourself over time. And like any relationship, it evolves. It deepens. It has seasons. Some days, you'll feel incredibly in tune with your body. Other days, it might feel distant or numb or even uncomfortable. That doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means you're human. So let's talk about what it looks like to stay in relationship with yourself, especially through the messy, tender, or uncomfortable moments. Because true intimacy isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Let me ask you something. What happens when you feel triggered, ashamed, or disconnected? Do you shut down, numb out, criticize yourself? Or are you willing to pause, breathe, and ask, what part of me needs love right now? That simple question can shift everything. Because inside of every reaction, every shutdown, every judgment, there's a younger part of you that learned to protect itself in a very smart way. Maybe it learned to shut down when things felt unsafe. Maybe it learned to disconnect from the body because the sensations were overwhelming. Maybe it learned to stay busy, productive, or in control because stillness felt like danger. When we bring compassionate attention to those parts, not to fix them, but just to witness them, we create healing. We say, I see you. I hear you. You make sense. And often, those parts soften, not because we forced them to, but because we finally listened. Now let's talk about aging. Because for many people, especially women, there's a deep cultural script that says, your sensuality declines with age. And I just want to say clearly, that's a lie. Sensuality does not have an expiration date. In fact, many people find that as they age, especially when the pressure to perform or please others drops, they finally begin to explore intimacy with themselves in a deeper way. There's more wisdom, more patience, more self-knowledge. There's a sense of, I know who I am. I know what I need. I'm not afraid to claim it. That's not decline. That's power. And if you're watching this and thinking, but I feel so disconnected, just know that disconnection is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. You can come home to yourself at any age. You can rediscover your body at any stage. You can ignite pleasure, joy, and presence. No matter how long it's been, your body is still here. Your breath is still moving. Your desire, your longing, is still alive. And that means it's not too late. So what does this look like, practically speaking? It looks like committing to small, sustainable practices that help you stay connected to your body and your truth. That might be 5 minutes of breath work each morning, just to feel yourself. Journaling at night with the question, what did I feel today? Putting on music and dancing in your living room. Touching your own arm, your own face, your own thighs with tenderness. Saying yes to pleasure, even if it's just in the way you sip your tea or soak in the bath. The point isn't the practice itself. It's the relationship you're building through it. A relationship of trust, of listening, of honoring your body as a wise, living, beautiful part of you. Not a problem to be solved. And maybe most importantly, it looks like making space for your aliveness. Because when we repress or ignore our sensuality, it doesn't disappear. It just hides. But when we give it room to breathe, when we welcome it home, when we stop apologizing for wanting to feel good, to feel whole, to feel alive, something magical happens. You begin to walk differently. Speak differently. Relate to others differently. Not because you're trying to be sexy or spiritual or high vibe, but because you're rooted in yourself. You're no longer abandoning your own experience to fit someone else's script. You're no longer outsourcing your pleasure, your worth, or your safety. You're choosing to live from the inside out. That is intimacy. That is sovereignty. That is freedom. So, wherever you are in this journey, whether you're just beginning or reconnecting after years away, I want you to know, you're not behind. You're not broken. You're not too much or too little. You're here. You're breathing. And you're remembering what it means to belong to yourself again. Take it slow. Be gentle. Stay curious. And above all, trust that your body knows the way. Because it does. It always has. And now so do you.